Before we take a dive into the stunning court papers and the hidden depositions that could blow the Brown family to smithereens, let us pause for a moment. Our team worked diligently uncovering the muck and behind-the-scenes information from your favorite reality television series. If you enjoy these in-depths and don't want to miss the next explosive episode, hit the like button, subscribe, and push the bell icon now. Your support keeps us going. Okay, let's get into the story. So that we can understand how it all came apart, we can't just turn back to the beginning, we have to start at when it all came apart. That was in 2021, when Christine Brown closed up her life in Flagstaff and moved to Utah with daughter Truly. Things seemed civilized at first. Cody was visiting sporadically, there were calls being placed, and everyone seemed to have achieved a calm balance. But in secret, things were indeed icy. Christine's friends all confirm that there never was a working it out period. Cody's visits became less frequent, his calls succinct and tense. By spring of 2023, the tension finally broke. It wasn't an angry fight that pushed things to the breaking point. It was something less sensational and far more telling. Truly had a horror show asthma attack one night. Christine took her to the ER in terror and alone. She called Cody over and over again, 4 times, leaving panicked voicemails. No return call. She sent texts. Nothing. Hours later, at 7 a.m., Cody picked up casually, "Is she okay now? I was sleeping, phone on silent." That was Christine's breaking point. For her, this was not just missed calls, it was proof of years of emotional absence and parenting abandonment. In weeks, Christine had hired one of Salt Lake City's strongest family law firms. Their goal was clear as day: get sole custody of Truly Grace Brown. But the catch is, Christine's lawyers did not need private investigators or surprise witnesses. Their strongest ammo was Cody himself. Based on a leaked copy of the filings, Christine's lawyers constructed their case from over a decade of sister wives tape. They created a montage, episode by episode, season by season, of Cody's worst parenting mistakes. It wasn't rumor, it wasn't gossip. It was Cody himself, in his own words, recorded for all time. At the center of the case was one unforgettable moment: Isabel's scoliosis surgery. A child begging her father to not leave and be there for her, with Cody refusing, giving excuses that fell apart under interrogation. Legal experts told us that in family court, judges do not simply consider isolated errors, they are searching for patterns. And Cody's failure to remain at a time of such critical juncture was not seen as judicious or wise. It felt like abandonment. Christine's attorneys framed this not as an ancient complaint, but as a preview of what would, and likely would once more, be done. Their opening argument ended, at least according to accounts, with portentous words, "This is only the beginning." From there, the case expanded. Christine's attorneys placed calendars in 2020 and 2021, laying bare in meticulous detail how many days Cody lived with her family versus Robin. And the figures were not disproportionate, they were staggering. And as a coup de grace, they used Cody's own words on the show as court evidence. What had previously aired as family drama now became official evidence of emotional abandonment. The case was nobly simple but devastating. Cody hadn't strayed off accidentally. He'd made a choice. A deliberate, willful one to maintain his distance from Christine and Truly, all in the name of COVID precautions. Even Christine's attorneys cited psychological studies on how much damage a missing parent can inflict on a child, and summed up Cody's so-called precautions as a thin fig leaf of emotional withdrawal. But this is where it gets even more interesting. The strongest evidence against Cody did not come from Christine's witnesses. It came directly from Cody himself. What came next was most certainly the worst of all. The worst, that is, for both Cody and for the whole Brown family. Christine's attorneys did not simply attempt to persuade the judge that Cody had not been a very good husband. They turned it into something far more sinister, an abandonment as a father. The question they posed to the court was bluntly straightforward. Can a man be a good father in a home where he openly hates the child's mother? To drive the point home, they cited Cody's notorious knife in the kidneys remark as evidence of profound hostility. Legal expert James Corrin broke it down thus. This is an extremely advanced tactic. Christine's camp is connecting Cody's resentment of Christine to the emotional damage done to their children. When a father shows contempt to the mother, it doesn't just stay there. It unbalances the child's universe. It's poisonous, and the child knows it. The picture painted by Christine's lawyers was bleak. A father unavailable in moments of medical crisis, merciless and distant in the loneliness of a global pandemic, and belligerently hostile at home. Not a patriarch, but a man cracking under the very authority he seemed to rule over. And just as the court was weighing Christine's testimony, another bomb dropped. This one wasn't from Christine. It was from someone no one saw coming, Janelle Brown. According to sources, Cody and his lawyers were prepared to challenge Christine's accusations. They had rehearsed defenses. Christine was vindictive, sensationalizing, or misconstruing Cody's protective regulations. But they weren't preparing for a sworn affidavit submitted by Janelle herself on behalf of Christine. Janelle had always been seen as the calm, rational one of the family. If Christine was angry, Janelle remained unflappable. That's why her word carried so much weight. And she didn't just repeat Christine's accusations of neglect. She brought something even more serious, parental alienation. For those who are unaware, parental alienation is not neglect. It's worse than that. It's when a parent actively tries to indoctrinate against the other parent, or, in this unusual case, against their family and extended family. As James Corrin put it, neglect is passive. Alienation is active. It's not just absence, it's manipulation. It's psychological warfare. Janelle's affidavit allegedly described a chilling fortress mentality within Cody and Robin's home. She said the children were instructed that outsiders, including their own siblings and mothers, were disloyal, unsafe, even threatening. Her evidence provided chilling anecdotes. Following a strained telephone call between Cody and one of his older sons, Janelle heard him turn to 9-year-old Solomon and say, "Your brother doesn't respect your father. That's why we need to be careful." She described a communication pattern being cut off. Attempts by older siblings to call or FaceTime the youngest children were regularly refused with excuses of sleeping, being busy, or not being able to be reached. Even gifts from Christine's children were sometimes late and met with derogatory comments such as, "Oh, look what they sent." And then, of course, there was the most dynamite charge of all, one that specifically implicated Robin. Under oath, Janelle stated she believed Robin was coaching Ariella, the youngest. Janelle recalled a time when, after having met one of her half-sisters, tiny Ariella came back to Robin and mimicked a line very much the same as Robin's on-tape declarations. "She doesn't love Daddy like we do." This was no longer a custody battle. Janelle's affidavit turned the case around. What was previously Christine's quest for custody of Truly now seemed something entirely different. A struggle for the heart of the Brown family. At this stage, the court was presented with two disastrous lines of argument: that Cody not only didn't provide for some of his children, but deliberately poisoned the minds of others as well. The stakes couldn't be higher. Any thoughtless remark that Cody had ever made on national television was now ammunition, Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C, in what was rapidly becoming his life's trial. We had already reported on the news of Janelle's firebrand affidavit, which charged Cody and Robin with waging a psychological crusade against the family. But then there was the follow-up shocker: the patriarch strikes back. The play wasn't innocence to prove, It was to demolish Christine and Janelle's credibility in its entirety. It wasn't a defense, it was a counterattack, a war in court designed to thrust each wife, each kid, and each injury through the filth. Psychological tests required by the court, irate depositions, and ultimately a ruling that could strip Cody of parental rights loomed on the horizon. For the man who once referred to himself as the head of the family, this was the time when so-called king got to lose his crown. Christine's case was airtight, meticulously documented by years of video testimony. Janelle's affidavit had blindsided him with damning charges of alienation. Cody's lawyers were privy to the truth. They could not emerge victorious defending themselves. The evidence was too on the surface, too impeccable, so they shifted strategy, borrowing an approach straight from Cody's own makeup, attack. Rather, his official reply to the court was no defense at all. Instead, it was a manifesto, casting Cody neither as a careless dad, but as a victimized man, victimized by a rotten conspiracy of angry ex-wives. Legal analyst James Corrin summed it up bluntly. This was the scorched earth defense. You don't fight the facts. You attack the motives. You try to convince the judge that nothing can be believed because the accusers have an ulterior motive of revenge. It's high risk. It can elicit sympathy or go up in flames for you in spectacular fashion. In their complaint, Cody's lawyers faulted Christine and Janelle with twisting a decade of complex family politics into a false narrative of abuse and neglect, all to end his relationship with the children and earn high moral ground in the court of public opinion. At the center of this defense was something his lawyers called the patriarchal protection doctrine. It was bombastic, melodramatic, but loose on the law. The defense contended that because he was the patriarch of a plural family, Cody's duty wasn't to each wife or child in particular. It was to the survival of the family unit. His authoritarian COVID policies, his prolonged stays with Robin's family, even his missing Isabel's surgery, these weren't examples of neglect, they insisted. They were examples of sacrifice. With Cody, absence became presence, neglect became protection. He wasn't leaving his children behind, he was protecting the family from destruction. What's more, at least that is how it was portrayed in the story. But this counterattack wasn't solely about Cody. It had to take down Janelle's testimony as well, and that meant involving Robin in the eye of the hurricane. Robin submitted her own affidavit through her lawyers. Insiders referred to it as the portrait of a woman under siege. In her affidavit, Robin claimed to have been the family scapegoat from day one. She insisted Christine and Janelle's anger over her friendship with Cody turned bitter to jealousy, then inflated into what she called an orchestrated smear campaign, casting her as a manipulative homewrecker. One line was reported to read, "I have been treated like the scapegoat of this family since the beginning." And with that, the battle lines were drawn. On one side stood Christine and Janelle, accusing Cody of neglect, emotional abandonment, and alienation. Across from them stood Cody and Robin, portraying themselves as victims of betrayal and vendetta. The court had no option but to ramp up. The case entered into its darkest period, discovery. This was the multi-day depositions where every family member would be forced to speak under oath. No cut, no do-over, no confession camera. All hesitation, all flub, every burst of anger on tape, ready to be employed against them. And for the Browns, discovery would not just be legal procedure. It would be a ruthless test of endurance, tearing open wounds reality TV never had the courage to rip. What went on behind those closed doors was even more dynamite than anything reality TV cameras had ever captured. Our sources provided us with blow-by-blow accounts of the depositions, and what was unveiled was nothing but firebombs. Christine Brown was the first to take the hot seat. Cody's attorney, let's call him Mr. Davies, came in swinging, aiming to portray her as unstable, hypocritical, and unreliable. According to transcripts reviewed by insiders, he pressed hard, but Christine held firm. Davies asked, "Ms. Brown, you've said Mr. Brown's COVID rules were just an excuse to ignore Truly. Is that correct?" Christine answered level-headedly, "I said his rules were enforced unevenly. He quoted them as a reason not to parent my children." Davies tried to nail her down again. "And yet you travelled during the pandemic, even to family events. By your own logic, weren't you endangering Truly?" Christine did not flinch. "I followed CDC guidelines and took precautions. My decisions were about living safely. His decisions were about control and avoiding responsibility." Again and again, Davies attempted to get her to trip up. Informing Truly she informed her father he didn't love her, or describing Cody as a horrible father. Christine stood firm. "I never said anything like that. I told her only that her father had very strict rules, and that is why he was at Robin's house. A mother doesn't turn her child against her dad. A father should never make her choose." As per all accounts, Christine remained calm, collected, and unflappable, deflecting every assault into a rebuke of Cody's own decisions. Then Cody spoke. And then everything began to break down. His own testimony lasted nearly 7 painful hours, led by Christine's attorney, Ms. Evans. Her tactic was brutally blunt: use Cody's own words against him. With a laptop, she played clips from sister wives right in the courtroom, forcing him to sit through his own quotations. Evans began, "Mr. Brown, tell me about Isabel's 2020 surgery. You didn't attend, is that correct?" Cody maintained, "I wasn't going to abandon my family during a pandemic. It was a lousy decision, but I made a sacrifice." Evans retorted, "A sacrifice? Demonstrate for us what Isabel experienced." She showed video of Isabel sobbing, devastated by her father's departure. "Mr. Brown, you look at your daughter there. Do you still believe you made a good decision?" Cody bristled. "That's a TV show. It's edited for drama. They didn't film the hours I spent on the phone. They didn't film the larger picture." Evans pressed, "Was Isabel's crying edited, Mr. Brown? Was her pain fictional?" As the questioning grew sharper, Cody's temper flared. Evans played another clip, Season 17, Episode 3, the notorious knife in the kidneys remark. "That's how you describe the mother of 6 of your children. That's violent language, isn't it?" Cody flashed back. "It was a metaphor. I was angry. She betrayed me." Evans: "Did Truly betray you, Mr. Brown?" Cody: "What? No, of course not." Evans: "So why punish her? Why avoid her for months? Your anger was reserved for Christine, but your abandonment was visited upon Truly. Isn't that fair?" By then, witness accounts state, Cody slammed the table. "This is character assassination. I love my kids. I've always loved my kids. This is a farce." But it was too late. His defensiveness, his anger, his inability to apologize. Everything was on the record in the transcript. Instead of coming across as a befuddled father, Cody came across as arrogant, self-pitying, and obtuse to his own role in the demise of the family. With Christine unruffled and Cody literally disintegrating, the depositions left the judge with 2 radically disparate accounts of events. It was clear that he said, she said wouldn't do. The court needed something tangible. That's when the judge asked for the legal equivalent of a nuclear option, a full psychological profile. A well-known child and family psychologist, Dr. Anna Sharama, was employed to interview weeks' worth. Not just Cody and Christine, but Robin, Truly, Solomon, and Ariella as well. She performed psychological testing, observed for family dynamics, and completed an 80-page report. As informed sources have it, what Dr. Sharama concluded would shake the entire case to its core. Her findings didn't merely assess parenting techniques. They supposedly revealed the underlying psychological facts that were destroying this dysfunctional family. And number 1 on her list, Cody Brown. When the last psychological report of Dr. Sharma came, it drew 3 highly different portraits, one's more revealing than the other. Cody's assessment, sources indicated, was harsh. The psychologist tagged strong narcissistic and authoritarian traits, noting control patterns, defensiveness, and a lack of genuine empathy. Christine's portrait depicted a stability and protection-motivated mother. But Robin's was where things became more intriguing. Dr. Sharma did not demonize her to that extent. Instead, she referred to Robin as an enabler, a key facilitator of Cody's dysfunctionality. She not only enabled planning her own children's loyalty to Cody, but also his damaging behavior towards the rest of their family. But nothing in the report struck as forcefully as the interviews with the children. Actually, 13 showed herself to be intelligent, spunky, and badly hurt. The doctor stated that she accounted for that she loved her father, but that she testified in tears. "I know he loves me, but he loves being at Robin's house more." The testimony was a mixture of love and pain, along with her overwhelming attachment to Christine, whom she described as her rock and protector. Solomon's testimony confirmed what Janelle had pledged on her affidavit. He bristled whenever things started to head in directions towards questions regarding his elder brothers, quoting word for word Cody's tales. He admitted to missing them, but added, "Dad says we can't see them a lot because they might have germs or bad attitudes." It was the poignant witness of a boy struggling with love for brothers and the desolate hope for approval from his father. And then Ariella. At her young age, she recited adult words with unsettling precision. When questioned regarding Truly, she said, "Christine took her away." When questioned regarding her brothers, she said again, "They didn't follow the rules." The girl's repeating so far beyond what she has lived put up a blaring red flag, proof of parental alienation. Dr. Sharma's court recommendation was unambiguous. Christine, she recommended, should be granted sole legal and physical custody of Truly. She went further than that, though, requesting the court to intervene in Solomon and Ariella's case, cautioning that the sibling bond that existed between them was being willfully destroyed and intervention was necessary to prevent long-term damage. By the time the final hearing rolled around, the atmosphere within the courtroom had been referred to as somber, almost funereal, no air conditioning, no cameras. Only Cody, Robin, Christine, their attorneys, and a judge prepared to make a life-altering ruling. The judge addressed Cody directly. "Mr. Brown, this court has read hundreds of pages of testimony, exhibits, and an extensive psychological evaluation. You appeared before this court as a patriarch, the patriarch of a large family, but evidence, much of it taken from your own mouth, tells the story otherwise. It is the story of a father who, when faced with responsibility, chose abdication rather. A father who beat his child for what he saw as the iniquities of her mother." The judge turned to Truly. "The evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates that Christine Brown has been her reliable, steady and loving caregiver. Mr. Brown's participation has been intermittent, and his judgment, especially while Isabel was undergoing surgery, raises substantial questions regarding his capacity to prioritize his children's needs. Therefore, this court grants Christine Brown sole physical and legal custody of Truly Grace Brown." The language hit with all the force of a sledgehammer. Instantly, Cody lost all statutory authority to make decisions about Truly's education, medical care, or religious instruction. Statutorily, he was reduced to the role of little more than a visitor in his daughter's life. But the court ruling didn't stop there. The judge then addressed what she called the darkest heart of this case, Solomon and Ariella's estrangement. She began guardedly. "This court is not inclined to meddle in the upbringing of an intact family, but with the public and extraordinary nature of this family, coupled with the deeply disturbing disclosures in Dr. Sharma's report, the court must step in for the best interests of these children." She went on. "The evidence confirms that Solomon and Ariella are targeted intentionally apart from their other siblings. a fundamental building block of their identity and family history. They are raised in a climate of mistrust, one this court determines is harmful to their emotional health. Cody and Robin leaned forward in shock. Surely the judge wasn't going to take this as far as this. And then there was the punch that changed everything. The judge's tone was even, surgically exact. So Solomon and Ariella will remain with Mr. and Mrs. Brown, but the harm that occurred must now be repaired. Then the shock everyone in the room was not expecting. For at least a period of 6 months, all contact between Mr. Brown and his children shall be supervised. Supervised visitation, the strongest punishments a family court can impose, typically reserved for parents deemed unsafe to be alone with their own children. In a snap, Cody Brown, ex-self-proclaimed patriarch of a big family, lost the privilege to be alone with his youngest kids. But this was not routine supervision. The judge said this: a therapeutic supervisor would chair each session, guiding Solomon and Ariella through closely supervised meetings that were designed to unravel the damage of alienation. The approach wasn't just about protecting the kids, but about rebuilding their fractured relationships with Christine, with Janelle, and most of all, with their many siblings. The words told like a verdict against Cody's entire legacy. Mr. Brown, you started this family. Now this court orders you to let your children be a part of it. And that was it. For Cody, it was not just a loss in court, it was a public dismantling of the character he had spent his life constructing. He entered the courtroom a self-appointed king, patriarch of a polygamous dynasty. He left a public label of unfit father, excluded from solo contact with his own children. For Christine, the outcome was sweet, but indisputable victory. She had fought for Truly to be free, stable, and secure for years. And now she was. The quiet victory was hers. For Janelle, it was justice contaminated with squalor. Her courage put the system in the position of having to look at what was happening, and her children could remain connected to their brothers and sisters. But she understood as well as anyone, no verdict, no counseling, no decree could erase years of suffering. And for Solomon and Ariella, the youngest and most innocent, the road ahead would be most challenging of all. They had been drafted into a conflict they did not enlist in, and even with the help of the court, it would take years, not months, before trust and family ties could be re-established. And what of Cody and Robin? They returned to their large house on Coyote Pass, a king and queen of a kingdom of 2. Behind closed doors, Cody seethed, threatening an appeal, raging that the courts were rotten, that his family had been stolen from him. But the actual truth was not so readily accepted. He hadn't lost his family, he had given it away. The patriarch, who once proclaimed himself king of a large clan, departed with nothing more than a title stripped of meaning, and a last chilling reminder that a divided house, especially one acted out on reality TV, can never stand.